Hi, everybody, and welcome to Hello, It's Better to Talk. Now, today I'm really, really happy to be talking to Yaron Engler, who is working in the field of men's communications, men's groups, and something I kind of really want to get to, really dig down deep in is how to get men to talk. I don't know where I'm coming from this because we had a little chat just before the show started, and I was saying that actually I think it's quite hard to be a man these days, and it's difficult, and men are finding their way. Looking at, well, I mean, Yaron, you've got more experience at this than I have, but can I hand over to you and say sort of like why you're doing the work you're doing? What turns you on about that?
Hey, Helen. Good
Hi.
to be here. Why am I doing it? I think the first thing that comes up for me is the impact that this work had on me. When I first was introduced to the concept of men, spending time with men and going deep together, talking about what's really going on, but not in a kind of therapeutic space. More for me, it's more about growth. Like, how can I become the man that I want to be by being with other men who are in the same similar path? And when I saw the impact on me, I was in a weekend, it was 2015, as a participant in a workshop with John Wineland, who later on became my teacher for quite a long time. And I remember coming to this weekend very curious. I heard before about this concept of men's group. Now, there are different ways of men's groups. It's still kind of a weird thing. What the hell is it, a men's group? So there are many men's groups that are run in a way that is kind of not therapy, but it's more a place to share and to open up and be vulnerable as a man, which I think is really needed. But the way I was introduced to it was kind of more, yes, and we open up, but then how can we challenge ourselves then to make a difference, to change, to become the men that we want to be, to cut the chains that need to be changed from history of things that maybe are no longer relevant for us. And that weekend, when I was able to connect with men that I would probably never have any touch with or any communication with on such a deep level, and to see them and to see myself like cracking open in a way that was beautiful and fun and enjoyable and insightful, that it was an incredible experience for me. And since then I just decided, I want to commit to this. So I became a participant with John, started to assist him in his workshops in LA, in New York. I traveled around, and I slowly started to deliver this work in many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I know you've got a course coming up, haven't you, that starts on the 25th of October. Whereabouts is that going to be based?
It's based on what we call online. I have clients from around the world, so it's completely, we're doing everything online. I've ran these things before. This thing, I don't know if you heard about, there is this thing called COVID. You hear about pandemic? Something?
There's
something going on.
That old thing.
Yeah. So I ran my programs way before that on Zoom, and it worked really, really well. And guys are really happy about it, because it's not a secret that a lot of guys that want to go into that space and want to grow around us in our normal life, we don't really have a lot of times the people around us that will encourage us to go and do this kind of growth work. A lot of times we have people who hold us back. So, I have guys that can communicate. A guy from Switzerland can connect with a guy from Ireland to do this work. So it's all done online. Very simple.
Okay. All right. So, and do you, I mean, is your experience that men will open up more when there aren't women around? I mean, is there something, I mean, I'm kind of just thinking back, like when my son, who's now 28, was 6, he kind of moved, he was been very much a mummy's boy. He and I had a really close connection. And then sometime around the time he was 6, he just switched like that overnight and transferred his main affection to his dad. And I was kind of like cool with that, because it felt like he needed to be around his dad because he wanted to learn what it was like to be a man. And I couldn't teach him that. I could just, I could teach him lots of things, but I can't teach him how to be a man. So, but I really, you know, that really kind of still is something that was very important somehow in his upbringing. And I'm kind of imagining that for your guys, it is important to have a guy only space.
Yes, you know, I keep asking my clients a lot of times about like, what do you think about the fact that it's a men only? Because again, the fact that it's a men only environment doesn't mean that what we're doing is for men. It's actually, I get the phone calls from the wives, from the girlfriends sometimes saying, I don't know what you're doing in this men's group, but please continue to do it because it has a huge impact on us, you know, on our relationship, on his presence with the kids, on he's much more calm and relaxed. So the fact that we're meeting men amongst men doesn't mean that it's like we're doing some conspiracy there, you know. It's not that. Would, to your first question, would men open up more if it's just men? I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but the texture of openness and how deep they will go in certain subjects would be different if it's men only. Because the minute that you have a woman around, the whole energy changes. You know, the macho stuff starts to be, we're animals in the end. You know, so things bubble up, and when this doesn't happen, and you have, you know, I like to facilitate in a way that I share what's going on for me, so it gives people the confidence to also understand, like, okay, we can go deep here, we can share everything, and slowly guys start to share and open up. Men start to get confident to share things that they have never talked about before because they didn't have courage, and they probably won't if there will be a woman around. So I do think that there is huge value, and in the future I would like to see more of mutual groups that work together.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, I see it as a stepping stone right now. I see it very much in the beginning of this kind of work, where I think we do need men to work with men, women to work with women, and then I think the connection will be deeper, and we won't see so many relationships falling apart. We won't see so many people quite lost when it comes to intimacy and sexuality and all these kind of things. It's a very long process. I think both for men and women. You know, there were a lot of movements in the world that created change that was needed, but they screwed us up in other ways that we now need to deal with. And I'm talking about, for example, the feminist movement, which, you know, I am the first one to say that I see complete equality between men and women in opportunities. I would like to see that. Yet at the same time, it doesn't work when it comes to intimacy and sexuality. When we try to be equal there, we lose the polarity. It creates all the excitement and the joy and the fun. And it's not surprised that so many relationships are falling apart, for example, that so many men and women are quite lost and don't know what's going on there. And it's a big learning curve. You know, it's a big learning curve that we all need to do. It's something that I often say. The way I see this work happening is, whether I'm a man or a woman, there are qualities that we consider to be feminine and qualities that we consider to be masculine. Feminine traits, you know, the call it feminine, call it omega, whatever the name is. Again, we spoke about names. I'm not attached to the name, but you know, it will be things like compassion, self-awareness, you know, attention to all, you know, like what's going on emotionally for things. This is what we call the more feminine traits. And then we have the masculine traits, which are more strategy, clear direction, getting shit done. Now, when I say feminine and masculine traits, I'm not talking about men and women. We all have those. And we all get stuck somewhere in that scale. If we go to the extreme masculine, would be the man, kind of I like to say the Donald Trump style, the guy that we all, this is how it works, this is my way, everybody else is stupid. And it's, you know, this is the extreme way of that, but there is a lot of good quality about getting shit done and having self-belief and being able to lead and cut through the noise. But it can go extreme, and some of us get stuck there, as men, for example, if we're talking about men. But there is also the other extreme of men who saw that kind of behavior as very aggressive, and they didn't want to be like that. So they took themselves completely to the other side. So they are very self-aware. They can be very sensitive to what's happening emotionally. They can be really good with children. They can be really good with animals and things like that. But they will be quite lost when it comes to business, and when it comes to be clear what's direction am I taking with my life, and to have some kind of structure. And these are the two extremes that we get stuck, both as women and men. I think the learning that nobody teaches us is how can we move on that scale freely, so when we need to be straight to the point and clear and focus, we can be there and embody that, not understand it here.
Yeah.
We're taught constantly in the head level. I'm talking about really embodying that capacity, the same as embodying my capacity to be really attentive and really sensitive to what's going on. And that can serve me as a husband, that can serve me as a business owner, that can serve me as a manager, that can serve me as a parent. But nobody teaches us these things. So I think this is kind of where I believe a space like what I create and others in the same format can give us this education that we're not being given, and the education that can help people feel more confident in who they truly are, not that what they have been told and they're brainwashed to think that there should be, but who am I truly, and therefore start to build relationships that work.
Absolutely, because sorry to kind of interrupt on you, because until you know yourself and really what your values are and what's important to you, what matters to you, then it's hard to relate to another person, because you're often looking for validation about who you are from somebody else rather than actually sort of knowing it yourself. I always say you've got to start with yourself and love yourself first. And I think that it's so important, the work that you're doing. I think because we learn from other people, don't we? We learn from role models. We learn from people like Donald Trump as well about how not to be in the world.
Yeah.
But we learned it a bit too late, because he still ended up being president for 4 years, and there's still a chance he could be president for another 4 years. So tell me about the magic that you do, Yaron, because you do something called the crop method. So I don't know if you can kind of give like a minute or two's insight into what this is.
The crop method is something that I created to have a framework that can help people understand what's going on. It's a very simple process. The idea of the word crop came from the idea of creating crop, something that can nourish us and create growth in our life, but also from all that noise that we have, men and women, but I'm talking specifically about men, all that noise that we have from the bills and the job and the wife and the kids and it's all accumulated. How can you crop your life to what really matters to you and kind of let go of all the noise that is not necessarily something you need to carry with you? And it comes from the 4 letters. The C is cleansing and clearing. We all have a lot of stuff in our lives that we keep carrying, and it creates a lot of problem. It can be in form of information that we consume, things that I read, listen to, watch, that actually, why am I doing this? And maybe you can let go of those. It can be food. We all take things into our bodies that are not really serving us. It can be environment, and one of the trickiest one is people. We all have people in our lives that are a little bit holding us back or create some issues, that if we learn how to create boundaries and set a bit of apart from those things, then we move to the R of the crop, which is reconnecting with who I truly am, reconnecting with my truth, with my gut feeling, with once I disconnect from all that noise that tells me who I'm supposed to be, naturally my inner voice comes out. That can be quite overwhelming, because a lot of us live 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years based on these expectations of others. So suddenly when this inner voice bubbles up, it can contradict the way we lived all those decades. And this is where the support of the environment of a group can really help, because as I said before, being around the environment where we usually spend our time with, we'll have a lot of people who won't be able to hold that new ideas and the new direction that we want to take. So being in an environment that supports you to go more inside instead of outside is crucial. Once you reconnect with your inner voice, you move to the O, which is observation. From the moment that I really truly know who I am and what I stand for, I'm starting to observe how I'm acting in life, what I do, what I don't do, what I'm acting with, what am I avoiding. And I have much better capacity to see, like, oh, why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Why am I thinking like this? And therefore make better decisions. And once we have this capacity to observe, and we did all the other processes, if you cleanse and clear, disconnecting from all the noise, reconnect with who you truly are. You start to observe your actions. Then you move to the P, which is play. This is where life becomes more playful, more fun, more connected, more joyful. Does that mean that your troubles are over forever? Absolutely not. This is not the 5 steps. I don't believe in this bullshit. Never really works. But it takes you to a deeper understanding of who you truly are, and you start to live a more authentic life. One of my clients said it really nicely. He said, actually, he's been with me for quite a few years. He said, every cycle that we go through this crop and through this process of the group and everything, the challenges that I'm facing in my life are bigger. Like life kicks me in the ass on a much bigger level. But my capacity to stay grounded to all these things and the level of truth and joy that I experience in connection with my wife, he literally became a father yesterday.
How wonderful. Girl or boy? Do you know?
Yeah.
Boy. Gosh.
And it's an interesting one, actually, with this specific guy, because in one of the biggest practices that we have, we deal with the relationship that we have with our fathers. And this is the guy that never thought about becoming a father. And it was after we did this exercise around his relationship with his father, he came to me and he told me, like, it's the first time ever that I can see myself becoming a father. And it never crossed even my mind. So, yeah, it's a nice story to wrap this up. But so, yeah, he said that, yes, the challenges grow, but also the life experience, the flavor of life and the connection and my ability to stand strong in all the challenges is growing as well. So that's what it is about.
That's a wonderful story, a really wonderful story. And so powerful, because I mean, I can remember years ago in the 80s doing a course called The Living Game, and they got us to do a letter to our mother, and then later on a letter to our father and our fathers. So obviously each individually, and the level of grief in the room when we were writing our letters to our fathers was almost unbearable. It was, there were so many broken connections, disappointment, unhappiness, feeling unloved for who we are, concern about them, not knowing how to deal with this. So, that was what 80s, 90s, I mean, 30, 40 years ago. But I just love to hear the work that you're doing now, Yaron. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's important in the context of men, because, again, men think a bit the way we think as men. It's important to mention after a story what you share, because I know the level of openness and grief and all the emotions that bubble up there. And I think this is part of the problem, that when we try to promote this thing for guys to join in, that's where they're like, oh, I don't want all that. So I think it's important to mention that once we go through that grief and through the pain, then our capacity to be stronger as people, that's the point of that. So it's not about, because a lot of times for men it seems like, okay, so what are you inviting me here to be open and vulnerable, not interested. It's not about that. It's once we allow ourselves to be courageous enough, as another client of mine said to me once, which is, I think, was a brilliant way to say it. He said, I'm strong enough to be weak. Which I really loved. Once we have that courage to allow ourselves to stop pretending that we have all our shit together, and we allow ourselves to open up and do things like what you say about our fathers and mothers and many other things, then there is real growth. Not the growth that we are pretending to find on LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff, that it's all mind game and we pretend that it's all growth, and but actually there is a lot of emptiness in it. I'm a true believer that to experience real growth, we need to go both directions. We need to go growth, but we need to go deep as well.
Yeah.
And when we go both, we create the roots that we need in order to create real growth, and not fluffy one that looks all right to the outside, but deep inside we're completely lost. And I think it's important to mention that for men especially, that there is a point in being vulnerable. There is a point in allowing yourself to truly speak about how you feel, to stop pretending, because then all that fear that you hold by yourself and nobody knows about, all that feeling of I'm not good enough, all that feeling of like, where the hell am I taking my life from here? Or these sensations of like, what the hell is this relationship? Like, I'm overwhelmed with being with all the family. I don't really know how to handle it. All these things can evaporate or be dealt with on a much more positive place, with confidence, with love, with a clear direction. And that's the point in doing this kind of exercise. It's not about doing the exercise itself only.
Absolutely. No, it's a stepping stone, but it's necessary. But if you don't kind of take it, then you're ending and avoid it, then you are living I mean, you're living an inauthentic life in a way, because you're frightened of being found out for those things, maybe. Oh, Yaron, I think we could talk for hours. I would love to talk with you for hours, actually, but I know that your time. We need to stop for now. But so, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Yaron, for these amazing insights and the way in which you're being a shining light, really, for men and all growing together, as because I think communities are incredibly important. We learn so much from one another. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, and then I can tell you about what's going to be happening next week on Hello, It's Better to Talk. Thank you.